Brothers and sisters, have you ever faced a moment in your life when everything seemed to collapse? A moment when despair knocked at your door and suffering seemed like your only companion on the journey? Well, today, I want to tell you a story that will change the way you see faith. A story that shook Los Angeles and continues to touch the hearts of those who hear it. I invite you to listen carefully, because by the end of this story, you will understand how you can change your life today. It was the year 2017 when a young seminarian, Juan Gutierrez, was practicing basketball. In an instant, a sharp pain struck him. His Achilles tendon had torn. For anyone, this would have been a serious problem, but for a young man preparing for the priesthood, it was an even greater trial. Think about what it meant for him. Months of rehabilitation, the risk of not being able to walk normally, and the shadow of a surgical operation that could have left him permanently affected. Now, let me ask you, how would you have reacted in that situation? Would you have given in to despair? Would you have cursed fate? Or would you have looked up to heaven, seeking an answer? Juan did what every Christian should do in times of trial. He knelt before God. He entered the seminary chapel, his heart heavy and his mind burdened with countless thoughts. In that sacred solitude, he felt inspired to pray a novena to Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. Now, many of you may know Pier Giorgio Frassati, a young man who loved God, the poor, and the mountains. He was a model of faith and hope for new generations. Born in 1901 in Turin to a wealthy family, he chose to live a humble life, dedicating himself to the needy and finding his spiritual strength in prayer and the Eucharist. A student of engineering and a passionate mountaineer, Frassati embodied Christian joy, witnessing to the gospel through his actions. His life was short but intense. He died in 1925 at the age of 24 from polio, leaving behind a legacy of love, service, and dedication to faith. But let's return to our time and to Juan. With fervor, day after day, he recited his novena. And then, something extraordinary happened, something that will astonish everyone. One day, while he was once again in the chapel praying, he felt something inexplicable, a sensation of warmth around the injured area. At first, he thought something might have caught fire under the pews, but nothing was burning. Yet, the warmth did not cease. It was as if an invisible hand was placing a divine touch upon him. And in that very moment, as he fixed his gaze upon the tabernacle, his eyes filled with tears, Juan realized that something great was happening. That warmth was not just a physical sensation. It was the sign of a supernatural grace. After that event, Juan stood up and realized he could walk normally. He no longer needed a brace, he felt no pain, and his legs were as strong as if nothing had ever happened. When he went to see the orthopedic surgeon for a checkup, the doctor was stunned. The tendon rupture had completely disappeared. It was something never seen before, something that science could not explain. And so, brothers and sisters, let us ask ourselves, who else but God could perform such a wonder? Who else but Jesus Christ could have heard the prayers of his faithful servant? And who else but a saint in heaven could have interceded for this miraculous healing? Pier Giorgio Frassati and Juan Gutierrez had much in common, both young, passionate about sports, and with hearts burning for faith. Frassati, with his life dedicated to charity and prayer, was an example of how Christian joy can transform the world. Juan, in his time of need, entrusted himself to him, finding not only an intercessor in heaven, but also a spiritual friend who shared his same passion for the love of God and service to others. The news of the miracle spread quickly. The Archbishop of Los Angeles, José Gómez, was among the first to confirm that this was an extraordinary event. His healing was a miracle. His doctors could not explain it, he declared firmly. And it was precisely because of this miracle that the Church initiated the canonical investigation that will lead to the canonization of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. But pay attention, dear brothers and sisters, because now it is important to understand what all this means for each of us. From this story, we have the certainty that saints are not distant figures confined to the dusty pages of history books. No, saints are alive, present, and they intercede for us, and God listens to their voices. This story teaches us that God always hears our prayers. When we turn to Him with a sincere heart, He responds, perhaps not always in the way we expect, but always in the way that is right. It confirms that saints intercede for us. Pier Giorgio Frassati, a young man like many others, a boy who loved life, was the instrument that God used to perform this miracle. But there is something just as important that we must pay attention to. The story of this miracle gives us the certainty that faith can transform our lives, but we must cultivate faith and trust in it. If Juan had not had faith, if he had not prayed, would he have received this grace? Perhaps not. But his trust in God opened the doors to the miracle. Pier Giorgio Frassati once said,
I have found how true the words of St. Augustine are. Lord, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. Indeed, foolish is the one who chases after the joys of the world, for they are always fleeting and bring sorrow, while the only true joy is the one that faith gives us. Faith is the first thing for me, and for it, I will make any sacrifice. Only faith gives us the chance to truly live.
Now, brothers and sisters, I ask you, what will you do with this story? Will you remain mere spectators, or will you make a commitment in your spiritual life? I invite you today, right now, to seek the intercession of a saint you love, to pray fervently, to believe with all your heart that God can work in your life too. And remember the words of Pier Giorgio Frassati, to the heights. Yes, brothers and sisters, our life is a journey towards the heights, towards God, and every miracle, every grace is a sign urging us to draw closer to Him. Now, I ask you, who among you needs a miracle? Who among you is ready to receive God's grace? Pray, believe, and wait to see the hand of God at work in your life. Because miracles are not over. Miracles still happen, and they can happen to you too. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your testimony of faith, and share this video with someone who needs a word of hope. Your sharing could be the spark that reignites someone's faith. May God bless us all.